The Piper L-4 Grasshopper was the Mosquito of the U.S. Army Air Forces. This unassuming aircraft, a military derivative of the popular civilian J-3 Cub, was a fabric-covered, high-wing monoplane powered by a simple 65-horsepower Continental engine. Its top speed barely exceeded 85 miles per hour, and it was deliberately unarmored, designed for light liaison work. This fragile machine was not intended as a weapon. Its primary function was purely observational. Its critical yet perilous role was flying low and slow above the front lines, where the pilot would spot concealed German positions, pinpoint targets, and then radio back coordinates to adjust the aim of the American field artillery. This duty was notorious for its danger, giving liaison pilots a terrifyingly short life expectancy due to exposure to flak and small arms fire. By the autumn of 1944, these L-4s were indispensable to General George S. Patton's Third Army as it swept across France. In the spearhead of that advance was the celebrated and hard-driving 4th Armored Division. Their assigned liaison pilot, Major Charles Carpenter, was not a career military man, but an Illinois high school history teacher and football coach. He quickly came to view his unarmored L-4H, serial number 433426, not as a crucial observation platform, but as a severe liability. Carpenter was a decisive man of action and discipline. To simply spot a heavy German defensive position or an advancing panzer, only to be forced to fly away and call in distant support, felt to him like a failure of purpose and a wasted opportunity. The aggressive pace of the 4th Armored demanded initiative, and the enemy was increasingly effective at shooting down the vulnerable Cubs. Carpenter, growing frustrated with his passive role, made an internal decision that would redefine his mission. If the German soldiers were going to shoot at him, he was going to shoot back, and he would do so with a terrifying immediacy. This simple, audacious thought, the desire for direct engagement, would fundamentally transform his tiny aircraft and initiate a legend.
The decision to weaponize his L-4 was never authorized from above, but was purely an act of brazen battlefield improvisation, driven by necessity and Major Carpenter's sheer will. As a civilian pilot, he knew the Piper Cub's simple, light tubular structure well, and he recognized its capacity for rapid, unconventional modification. He needed a lightweight armament capable of punching through German steel. The immediate answer lay available on the ground with the infantry, the M1A1 Bazooka, the anti-tank rocket launcher that utilized a powerful shaped charge warhead. Carpenter quickly understood that the bazooka, when fired from above, could exploit the thinnest armor, the roof deck, of any German tank, which was often less than an inch thick compared to the heavily fortified side and front plates. The technical execution, however, was fraught with risk. Carpenter initially experimented by rigging 2 bazookas, one beneath each wing strut, but his appetite for firepower demanded far more. He eventually settled on a fearsome total of 6 2.36-inch launchers. These were arranged in 2 tightly secured trios, meticulously bolted beneath the diagonal wing strut on the left and the right. The electrical wiring was the next critical step in this unsanctioned modification. Since the M1A1 was fired via a battery igniter, Carpenter, with the help of ordnance mechanics, wired each rocket tube to a crude, jerry-rigged firing panel installed in the cockpit. This system included individual toggle switches, allowing him to select and fire the rockets either singly for precision strikes or in a single, devastating 6-rocket salvo for maximum impact. With the custom, unauthorized armament complete, Carpenter bestowed a powerful and humorous nickname upon the transformed plane, Rosie the Rocketeer, a nod to the American wartime industrial icon, Rosie the Riveter. She was now dangerously heavy, possibly unbalanced and completely unconventional, but she was finally a weapon of her own making.
Major Carpenter took the heavily laden Rosie into the air, fully loaded with 6 M6 Heat rockets, consciously pushing the fragile aircraft far beyond its certified safety and weight limits. The small Continental A-65 engine, which provided barely enough power for its intended purpose, now groaned under the combined burden of the 6 steel bazooka tubes, the heavy rockets, the wiring, and the pilot. Yet the added weight was completely eclipsed by the overwhelming addition of purpose. Carpenter's initial combat sorties focused on targets of opportunity, primarily hunting down softer targets like German trucks, staff cars, and armored personnel carriers. These vehicles were typically found on the narrow, tree-lined roads of northern France, ideal for a surprise attack from a near-silent, low-flying plane that the enemy was trained to ignore. The fundamental key to Carpenter's success was the absolute element of surprise. German anti-aircraft crews and ground troops rarely wasted ammunition tracking the slow, noisy American spotter planes. When diving for a kill at about 75 miles an hour, a strike had to be surgically precise, as the L-4 possessed no complex targeting system. Carpenter relied on pure instinct and quick calculation. He found that by angling the bazooka tubes slightly upward upon mounting, he could compensate for the slight ballistic drop of the rocket during his shallow-angle dives. The distinct, explosive whoosh of a rocket firing from the Piper's struts was a sound no liaison pilot was ever supposed to hear, but it quickly became the sound of fear for the Wehrmacht. Word of the strange armed cub spread rapidly through the U.S. 4th Armored Division. The sight of the tiny liaison plane diving on machine gun nests or armored formations was unprecedented. The press, particularly Stars and Stripes, quickly started running stories on the pilot they reverently nicknamed Bazooka Charlie. But to the shocked German forces facing this relentless airborne nemesis, the image of the once harmless plane spitting rockets was so unnerving that they conferred a darker, more respectful title, the Mad Major. The true defining trial for Rosie the Rocketeer came during the brutal Battle of Aracourt, a massive and crucial armored engagement that erupted in late September 1944. The German military, desperate to blunt the American advance, launched a major armored counterattack. This counterattack was spearheaded by the deadly and heavily armored Panther tanks, vehicles known for their sloped, thick frontal armor that was virtually impervious to standard American Sherman rounds. The sheer numerical superiority and firepower of the German tanks quickly created a crisis, pinning down American infantry and support units in chaotic close-quarters fighting. Around midday, as the morning mist and fog finally began to lift, Major Carpenter was already airborne, scouting the column. He immediately recognized that this was not merely an artillery spotting mission, it was a desperate do-or-die attack, where his initiative was the only factor that could save the troops below. Carpenter knew a frontal assault on the thick-skinned Panthers was futile. He dipped Rosie dangerously low, using the tree lines and small ridges for precious cover, and lined up for his trademark top-down attack, aiming specifically for the Panther's extremely thin deck and engine armor. Flying straight into a frightening hail of German small arms fire and opportunistic flak, he made his first run. The characteristic double impact of a bazooka rocket was followed by a plume of heavy black smoke rising from the German line. Driven by his singular focus, he returned to his improvised base to rearm not once, but twice, flying a total of 3 separate combat sorties that afternoon under constant fire. Over those few hours, he fired at least 16 bazooka rockets into the advancing German formation. By the end of the furious fighting, he was officially credited with destroying or immobilizing 2 Panther tanks and several other armored vehicles. His relentless one-man airstrikes forced the entire German formation to halt, break up, and eventually retreat, directly saving a completely trapped American waterpoint crew who bore astonished witness to the impossible defeat of a panzer force by one single fabric-covered plane. The honorific tank ace was traditionally reserved for a gunner who had destroyed 5 enemy tanks in combat. Major Charles Carpenter reached and surpassed this incredible, unprecedented milestone in his low-powered L-4, an achievement that completely obliterated the conventional lines between Army aviation and the ground forces in a way no one had conceived. His confirmed kills quickly mounted, earning him the title of Tank Ace by the Associated Press, a title usually given to heavy tank crews. Carpenter's victories included not only the two Panthers, but also a number of other German armored vehicles. His success was celebrated globally. When interviewed by Wes Gallagher from the United Press in October 1944, Carpenter, the former high school history teacher and coach, offered a remarkably simple yet profound philosophical explanation for his extreme actions. "Some people think I'm nuts, but I just believe that if we're going to fight a war, we have to go on with it at 60 minutes an hour and 24 hours a day. I told my men when I started out that I'd either brown them or scare them to death, and I haven't grounded any of them yet." This powerful statement perfectly captured the spirit of the aggressive pilot who fundamentally refused to remain a passive observer in a total war scenario. His fame grew not just in the ranks, but internationally. The small fabric-covered plane, an aircraft designed to be absolutely harmless, became an immediate and potent symbol of American individual ingenuity and sheer combat spirit. Commanders like Patton, who prized such aggressive action above all else, viewed Carpenter as the perfect model for the can-do mindset they demanded from their entire army. Carpenter's success fundamentally validated the notion that with regional air superiority achieved, even the humblest aircraft could become a fearsome attack platform through a combination of raw courage and radical improvisation. The Germans, once complacent about the little Cubs, were now forced to divert precious anti-aircraft resources to watch the skies for every L-4, a stark testament to the paralyzing fear Bazooka Charlie had instilled in their demoralized armored units. To fully appreciate the sheer magnitude of Carpenter's feat, one must delve into the mechanical and engineering audacity involved. The M6 heat rocket, fired by the M1 bazooka, was designed specifically to defeat tank armor using a highly focused shaped charge. However, firing it from the L-4 Grasshopper, an aircraft with an empty structural weight of just 708 pounds, presented extreme, potentially fatal challenges to the aircraft itself. The backblast from the rocket exhaust, while technically recoilless, still generated a considerable force and intense heat that constantly risked tearing the light fabric of the plane's wings and fuselage, especially the critical tail surfaces. This inherent danger necessitated Carpenter's extremely careful positioning of the rocket tubes away from all vital structural fabric. The maintenance crews responsible for this unauthorized modification faced daunting hurdles. They had to ensure the 6 bazooka tubes were angled not only correctly for trajectory, but also sufficiently far away from the delicate fabric and control cables. They also had to calculate and account for the high-speed slipstream and the rocket's very brief, slightly unstable flight path upon leaving the tube. More critically, the rockets themselves were infantry munitions, prone to malfunction when exposed to the relentless moisture and cold of the European autumn. Carpenter's combat solution was often to fire them either in quick, destabilizing pairs or in a sudden full salvo, which maximized the chance of achieving a solid hit and overwhelming the target with multiple armor penetrations. The simple electrical wiring from the cockpit toggles to the rocket's igniters was itself a crude and potentially dangerous system. The massive addition of the 6 launchers, plus the pilot and the necessary radio equipment, put the tiny L-4 dangerously close to its maximum gross takeoff weight of 1,220 pounds, significantly reducing its performance and increasing the risk of a disastrous stall during evasive maneuvers. Carpenter flew on pure instinct and adrenaline, trusting the desperate makeshift engineering over the factory specifications. His success was a perfect confluence of high school physics, battlefield necessity, and the sheer audacity of a man who believed a 65-horsepower engine could carry him to victory over a 45-ton Panther tank. As the 4th Armored Division pushed relentlessly eastward toward the Rhine River and deep into the heart of Germany, Major Carpenter's unprecedented tally of armored kills steadily climbed. His final, officially confirmed score included 6 German tanks destroyed, a list that included 2 massive and formidable Tiger tanks, which represented the heaviest and most feared German armor on the field. This final count firmly established him among the elite tank aces of the entire war, a title shared by men who drove heavy Sherman or Persian tanks, never a fragile Piper Cub. The sheer improbability of his success resonated across the entire Allied command structure. For his astonishing and repeated actions of selfless courage, Charles Carpenter was officially awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in action, one of the United States military's highest honors, bestowed for conspicuous intrepidity and daring above and beyond the strict call of duty. His official citation meticulously recognized his relentless personal combat attacks on enemy armor, noting how these strikes often forced German formations to immediately break off their assaults, directly preventing major losses of American lives and materiel on the ground. The colonel presenting the award would have viewed Carpenter as the absolute personification of the can-do, fearless American spirit. Major Carpenter, you have taken an unarmed observation plane and transformed it into a deadly instrument of decisive force. You've accomplished far more than destroying enemy steel. You have fundamentally broken their will to fight in the open. Your actions have literally written a new and unbelievable chapter in the history of combined arms warfare and earned the undying gratitude of the infantry you saved. Ultimately, Carpenter's greatest contribution wasn't just the enemy iron he destroyed, it was the profound psychological impact. He proved that the American spirit of improvisation could turn the most innocuous tool into a lethal weapon. The Germans were forced to divert precious anti-aircraft resources to constantly watch the skies for the previously dismissed L-4s, a true testament to the paralyzing terror Bazooka Charlie had instilled in their demoralized armored units. The war for Charles Carpenter ended not with a bang of a bazooka rocket, but with a silent, devastating internal threat. In 1945, having miraculously survived hundreds of harrowing combat sorties, enduring countless near misses from enemy fire, and the constant, crushing stress of the front line, Carpenter was finally grounded by a far more insidious enemy. Doctors diagnosed him with Hodgkin disease, a particularly aggressive form of lymphatic cancer that carried a grim prognosis in that era. He was given a sobering estimate of only 2 years to live. Consequently, he received an honorable discharge from the Army in 1946, his wartime rank of major confirmed. The cruel irony was not lost on him. He survived the most intense, dangerous combat in Europe, only to be defeated by a devastating disease back on American soil. Major Carpenter, we have done everything medically possible. The prognosis is regrettably grim. I strongly suggest you go home and focus entirely on your family. There will be no more flying, no more fighting. The decorated hero, the storied Bazooka Charlie, returned to his civilian life in Urbana, Illinois, a legend facing a quiet, terminal battle. He quickly returned to his deep-seated passion, teaching history and coaching football at Urbana High School. It was a stark contrast. The man who made history by attacking tanks with a toy-like airplane was now teaching history to students, all while privately battling a fatal diagnosis. The war had gifted him the nickname and the Silver Star, but it had exacted a devastating toll on his health. Like many veterans, he faced the immense psychological challenge of integrating back into a peaceful society, a fight he met by throwing himself into his work and his family. He was a natural fighter, and his new, final mission was simply living. He defied the doctor's grim prognosis with sheer willpower and benefited from early medical advancements, surviving year after year. He lived an astonishing 21 years past his initial death sentence. Charles Carpenter passed away in 1966 at the age of 53. having triumphantly outlived his initial 2-year diagnosis by 2 decades, and having built a life of quiet dignity and deep respect as an educator after his sudden, dramatic flash of wartime heroism. Yet the extraordinary story of Bazooka Charlie and his unique plane, Rosie the Rocketeer, staunchly refuses to fade from memory. It stands as a powerful and enduring narrative of American battlefield ingenuity, individual bravery, and improvisation under the most extreme pressure. Today, the original L-4H Grasshopper, Rosie the Rocketeer, is meticulously preserved and restored to its 1944 configuration, existing as a tangible testament to its pilot's audacious spirit. It is often displayed in aviation museums, typically suspended dramatically from the ceiling, intentionally posed in a dive to clearly showcase the makeshift armament, those 6 M1 bazookas bolted firmly to the wing struts, aimed forever at the phantom enemies of the 4th Armored. The aircraft's incredible legacy has been widely memorialized in specialized books, military documentaries, and even historical flight simulators, ensuring the memory of the Mad Major who defied both protocol and physics remains alive. The story of Major Carpenter is an essential lesson for military historians and strategists alike. It proves conclusively that the great narratives of war are often not written by the generals or dictated by the massive, expensive machines, but rather by the supremely resourceful, utterly fearless individual who, when faced with overwhelming technological odds, chooses to innovate and adhere to a simple, aggressive creed: attack, attack, and then attack again. In the end, Major Carpenter's indomitable spirit, much like his tiny, fabric-covered plane, proved demonstrably stronger than the heavy steel of the German Panzer. He personally ensured that the gentle Piper Cub, the least aggressive of planes, earned a fierce and permanent place in the annals of military aviation history.